You're listening to The Foundation of Wellness, a refreshing take on diet and lifestyle, with Jessica Dogert, a registered dietitian nutritionist, and Marisa Moon, a primal health coach.
Hey you guys, my name is Jessica and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and you can learn all about me on my website at jessicadogert.com.
Hey, it's me, Marisa Moon. I'm a primal health coach, and my website is marisamoon.com, and I'm the food blogger from mylongevitykitchen.com.
So today's episode is episode 23, and it is all about the ketogenic lifestyle. So Marisa and I are here to tell you the good and the bad, and we want to help you figure out if this lifestyle is right for you.
I'm excited about this. I think it's a good idea. It's important. It's everywhere. It's time. Let's do it.
I know. I mean, would you believe me if I said that a high-fat keto diet is the answer to everything from cancer to autism, or that you can lose up to 23 pounds in 3 weeks on a keto diet?
Whoa, dude. It seems like every direction I look, there's keto everywhere. There's a keto cookbook coming out like every single day, or keto articles in my inbox and all over social media, and they're catching everyone's eye. It's alluring. It's totally attractive for sure. I mean, that's why everyone is trying it. But why is it so alluring? Because it works? Or because you get to finally eat fat again after we were told not to eat fat for so long? You know, that was probably my favorite part about being keto.
I mean, I think that's where we share a lot of similarities in the sense of we tried low fat, but oh my gosh, we know the importance of healthy fat.
I love having fat back in my life.
It's honestly hard to believe that low fat was once a thing. But you're right. Lately, it seems as though everyone is loving the ketogenic diet and lifestyle. The ketogenic diet has actually been used for many years. I mean, mostly in clinical settings like hospitals, as part of the treatment protocol for children and adults suffering from epilepsy. But now it's going mainstream with celebrities and athletes and executives and performance-driven individuals, just due to its claims for promoting this quick weight loss, reduced inflammation, and just amplifying things like energy and mental clarity.
Yeah, I think, Jess, you need to tell our listeners, what does the word keto stand for, and what exactly is the keto diet?
Simply put, it's a high-fat, low-carb, moderate protein diet that puts your body in a state of ketosis. So when your diet is lacking in carbs but high in fat, your liver creates ketones, which are substances made when the body breaks down fat for energy. And the process of ketosis metabolizes fat to provide energy, meaning that you are burning fat as opposed to carbs. And as a result, you're likely going to lose weight since your body is in this fat burning mode. And studies have suggested that burning ketones and being in the state of ketosis is a cleaner way to just stay energized compared to running on carbs and sugar all day long. You know, keeping the body in this fat burning metabolic state is where the benefits of this diet are believed to come into play.
Yeah, that's the first thing I think about when I'm thinking about keto is fat burning. And I saw this really cool post. I know you saw it too, Jessica. It's by Max Lugavere, the Genius Foods author. And his post on Instagram was asking you, which diet is keto? A diet that's high in fat or a diet that's low in carbs? And he said the answer is a diet low in carbs. It's such a great way to look at it, because if you have fat on your body to burn, like fat you want to lose, then you want your body to make ketones from the stored body fat that you have. And you get into this keto zone, this ketogenic zone, by restricting carbohydrates, not by adding fat to your diet. It's not the fat that makes it happen. It's the absence of carbs. So you really could do the keto diet on moderate fat consumption. But anyways, I just thought that was a great point to discern, because when people think of keto, they just think of high fat.
I am so glad that you brought that up. I mean, I saw that really cool post by Max as well, and I was going to send it to you on Instagram just because, I knew that we were doing this upcoming week. But I feel like it's so important to focus on the fact that, yes, you need to embrace healthy fats, but you also need to focus primarily on just ridding your body of all of those exogenous carbs.
Yeah, you're going to hear this time and time again for health experts who have something against keto or low carb diets. And they're going to say that the body uses glucose as the primary fuel source, and you don't want to deprive your body of that like you're doing with keto or low carb.
Yeah, because glucose is what all carbohydrates break down to, essentially. And it's the easiest to use for energy, just the quickest burning. And that's why you get hungry so often when you eat a high carbohydrate diet. You're burning through that glucose and you can't store enough for energy later.
Exactly. So these experts would argue that you don't want to deny your body of glucose by going low carb because it's the fuel that your body needs. But this is actually quite mistaken, says scientist and cancer expert Paul Jaminet, who's the author of The Perfect Health Diet. He says it's true that our cells can easily utilize glucose, but the energy powerhouses of our cells, called the mitochondria, prefer to burn fat for energy, not glucose. Nearly all cells in the body prefer fat for fuel, with the exception of our red blood cells, our neurons, and another exception is our muscle cells during intense activity and workouts, which is why both sides agree that athletes usually are better off on a moderate carb intake instead of something really low like keto. Still, that's not very many cells in our body when we think of the trillions that make up our system, and that we're still getting some carbs and glucose on a keto diet because we're still eating vegetables.
Exactly. I mean, people think a keto diet is all bacon and eggs, but it's actually things like, salmon and dark leafy greens. Here's exactly what a keto diet looks like. So on a strict keto diet, fats are typically going to provide about 70 to 80% of your total calories, protein about 15 to 20%, and carbohydrates only 5%. And classic versions include things like bacon, cheese, butter, heavy creams to just fill out those numbers. But we now know it's probably a really good idea to supply the body with the micronutrients that it needs. So thankfully, you could still eat a very low carb diet and low carb foods that have dark leafy greens and avocados and tomatoes while you're allowing your body to enter ketosis. And if you're active, you have even more leeway for the few net carbs that are found in these foods.
Yeah, when you say net carbs, I feel like I should just let the listeners know what that is in case it's new to them. You're going to achieve the number of net carbs by taking the total grams of carbohydrates in a serving of food and minus the grams of fiber in that same serving of food. And that's where you're going to get the number for your net carbs. It's important during the keto and low carb diets because a food can have quite a bit of insoluble fiber, which means it doesn't get broken down into glucose and you don't have to count it in your carb count. So you get a little more leeway that way. Instead of just looking at the total carbs, you can consider the net carbs.
Taking me back to math class. So the foods that you want to include on a healthy keto diet are higher than normal amounts of healthy fats, including olive oil, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, avocado, and even some nuts and seeds. So all sorts of unsweetened, non-starchy veggies like broccoli and other cruciferous veggies, all types of leafy greens, asparagus, cucumber, zucchini. And you have moderate amounts of protein like grass-fed meat, pasture-raised poultry, cage-free eggs, bone broth, wild-caught fish, organ meats, and some full-fat, ideally raw dairy products.
Yeah, it's important to note that too many people make this mistake of going high protein on the keto diet. And then that creates an insulin response, which can inhibit this ketone production that you're going for.
Yes, I mean, moderation is key, and that's why people fill up so much on fats and non-starchy veggies. So foods to limit: starchy veggies like sweet peas, carrots, beets, and any kind of potatoes, legumes, beans, and soy products, and even fruit. Berries can be eaten, but only like a handful a day. And then foods to avoid completely: any type of sugar, including natural sugars like raw honey or maple syrup, all grains, including oats, wheat, rice, quinoa, pasta, and corn, processed foods, of course, like chips and cakes and candy and crackers and pre-made packaged foods. And then you also want to limit things like alcohol, soda, and sweetened beverages.
I mean, that right there is another reason why people lose so much weight when they're on the keto diet. They're cutting out all that crap and junk food. But even all the healthy foods that you mentioned, those were still pretty limited. I feel like, it's cutting out a lot of stuff. So one of my main issues is that this keto diet is not intended to be a long-term diet. Humans would have only done this for necessity in history, like times of real deprivation, not by choice. So it can be therapeutic. Yes, it can be extremely effective and safe in the short term for so many people. But we're talking about a few months here, maybe up to 6 months. And then it just becomes an unhealthy relationship with food when it keeps continuing on. Your diet lacks variety. Your hormones are likely going to be affected, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And you might end up getting the reverse effect than you did when you started. Many people get so obsessed with being keto because the results in the beginning are dramatic and life-changing. So they think that means it's something that they just have to stick with forever. Just like when people go vegetarian or start juicing or going vegan, they confuse this initial transformation to be something that's a life sentence or that they found the ending answer for everything. But our body really craves and thrives on diversity and variety, and these very restrictive diets don't offer optimal nutrition in the long run. And then what are the long-term consequences? Do we really even know?
Honestly, you bring up such a good point. I know a lot of people who have done the keto diet and who still do the keto diet and swear by it because, they lose weight really quickly and they just have so much energy and mental clarity. But I think like what I read off before, just foods that we have to limit, things like carrots and beets and potatoes, I'm obsessed with. So it's like, you really don't want to adhere to an extremely low carb diet for the rest of your life. And that's why I was really happy to learn that there are a few varieties of the keto diet. So there's a standard keto diet where you eat a very low carb diet, which is less than 50 grams of net carbs a day all the time. But then there's a targeted ketogenic diet where you follow the standard keto diet, but you eat extra carbs right before a high intensity workout. So the glucose is meant to just boost performance. Although there's not many scientific studies that have linked low blood glucose to reduce weightlifting performance, but that's also another way. And then there's one more. It's called a cyclic ketogenic diet. So the bulletproof diet actually falls into this category. You eat a really high fat, low carb diet 5 to 6 days a week, and then on day 7 you up your carbohydrate intake to roughly 150 grams a day, and during which it's called like a carb refeed day. So these carb cyclings, it actually helps you to avoid the negative effects that some people experience when they resist carbs long term, like thyroid issues, fatigue, and dry eyes. So full ketosis, it isn't for everyone, and adding carbs such as sweet potatoes and squash and white rice once a week actually helps your body systems that need some carbs to just function optimally.
There are a million stories out there and testimonials of people that feel exponentially better when they finally allow themselves this carb refeeding day. It's only one day out of the week on this cyclical ketogenic diet, but it happens because we are all different, and you really can't say that restricting your carbs so low is going to be good for everyone, and that's just proof right there. I mean, your body likes when it's surprised. It's more natural for your body to have a surprising intake of something like it would exist in nature in the old days, and I just love that technique. I think our listeners should check out The Keto Reset Diet by Mark Sisson. It's his latest book, which teaches people a more intuitive and flexible keto diet. So for our first timers out there trying the keto diet, how do they know when they're actually in ketosis? Because it doesn't happen instantly, right?
Right. I mean, depending on the person and their diet and their activity level, it could take days to get into ketosis or even up to a week. And you can fall back out of it so easily. So there's this initial period during which your body is adjusting to a new carb-free existence, and many people experience something called the keto flu for a few weeks, which includes symptoms like fatigue and brain fog and even nausea. But many people don't experience that, which is great. So here are some signs that you're probably in ketosis. In addition to measuring ketosis with keto urine strips, you'll experience reduced hunger, and that's because ketones suppress your hunger hormones, helping you feel full for longer. Or you might experience keto breath. People experience this metallic taste in their mouth due to just raised ketone levels. And of course, weight loss. The keto diet burns fat. So if you're losing weight, you are likely in ketosis.
I discovered the keto diet about 11 years ago when I first started dating Eric, who's now my husband. He was into like muscle building trends, and keto was a technique used to lean out quickly and lose fat easily. And I was so amazed by it. This was a long time ago, you guys. We were basically doing like an Atkins diet, lots of salami and steak and cheese, which was the complete opposite of the oatmeal, brown rice, whole wheat diet that was extremely low fat that we typically did. And it's not at all the ideal way to do it now, even with this salami, steak and cheese Atkins version, but I didn't know any better at the time. We didn't do it longer than maybe 3 months because we were literally just doing it to get that extra boost in lean body mass. But it was a hugely eye-opening experience for me. I went through a lot of those phases you were just explaining, Jess, when you were talking about reduced hunger and keto breath and weight loss. I mean, it's very real. These are common things that you're going to go through, especially the first time you ever get into ketosis. But the reduced hunger and the reduction in my cravings and appetite was really the one that changed my life forever, because I was always a slave to my appetite. Food was always on my mind and I wanted to eat even when I was full, and I just could not usually stop when I was full. And it just felt like I had zero control over it. So finally getting that control back pretty easily, I would go in and out of the keto diet pretty regularly. And we would just have nights when we'd go out and drink, and we were just having so much fun, staying young. And then I'd break the keto diet and then I'd get back on it. And it was easy to go in and out of it. And it was so easy to lose that excess fat and get into awesome shape. So I was a big fan. And that was like a really long time ago, far before I was thinking about being a health coach or anything like that.
And far before it was probably popular 11 years ago. I mean, I feel like it's really just been mainstream, the past few years. I remember years ago, though, too, like I would have oatmeal for breakfast. But nowadays, I mean, I've really switched it to just, a high fat, like eggs and avocado, and just the mental clarity alone. And, like you were saying, you really don't crave as much when you drop your carbohydrate intake. It's cool to experience. But weight loss is definitely going to be a primary attraction for people today. Weight loss has been shown to be successful and oftentimes immediate on a ketogenic diet. So in one Spanish study of 20 obese adults, participants were put on a low-calorie keto diet and lost an average of 40 pounds over 4 months. And in a 6-month study of 86 obese adults, those on the keto diet lost an average of 33 pounds. Another study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found those following a keto diet achieved better long-term body weight when compared to individuals who were assigned a conventional low-fat diet. So people also show a reduced rate of hunger and higher levels of satisfaction on a keto diet, resulting in a lower intake of food and higher burn rate of fat stores. So sounds like what you were describing, Marisa.
Exactly. That was everything. Reducing my hunger and just being more satisfied easily with my meals. It was the best.
Yeah, so let's talk about another huge pro of the keto diet and why that weight loss might be triggered. So the state of ketosis, or even just living a low-carb lifestyle, it's going to reduce insulin levels and inflammation. So insulin is a key hormone that helps move glucose from the bloodstream to the muscles and tissue. Higher levels of circulating insulin have been linked to increased inflammation, which is a bad thing for many reasons. And the keto diet can actually help to reduce insulin levels and thereby just potentially reduce inflammation in the body.
Yeah. And when insulin is being produced, the body literally cannot tap into the fat you have stored in your body. They are opposing functions, fat burning and insulin production. We can't burn that fat when you're producing insulin. I remember when I first started learning about nutrition, that was really the first time I understood what insulin is and what it does in the body. And I think I should explain to our listeners some of the basics because this might be new to you. When we consume carbohydrates, glucose or sugar is accumulating in our bloodstream. And in response, our pancreas releases this hormone called insulin to shuttle the sugar in our bloodstream over to our cells and to convert in our liver so it can be stored in our tissues. And when this is a constant thing, when we're chronically consuming carbohydrates and sugar at every meal and in between, the cells in our body eventually resist this call from insulin. And then the body just pumps out more insulin because the blood sugar levels are not being taken care of like they should be. And this is a vicious and dangerous cycle called insulin resistance, when more insulin than normal is required to deal with your blood sugar levels because your cells are not listening to these insulin calls anymore. When your blood sugar never really returns to normal, then you get type 2 diabetes. Insulin resistance is bad, you guys. Very bad.
Very bad. I mean, it promotes weight gain. It increases your risk of not only obesity and diabetes, but also heart disease, cancer, asthma, allergies, PCOS, kidney disease, many autoimmune diseases, and more.
And if chronically high blood sugar leads to insulin resistance, then the solution must be to eat low carb, right? This led to low carb diets and the keto diets just growing in popularity like crazy. And the results are showing great promise for weight loss and for reducing the risk of diabetes, even reversing some cases of diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and so on.
Right. So while insulin resistance is clearly damaging, not eating enough carbs, not calling for enough insulin can also cause health challenges and just insulin resistance in the future when you try to consume more carbs after being keto for so long. So the long-term consequences are really concerning. Like keto can potentially worsen hypothyroidism. So it's really important to monitor your biomarkers. This is key to just ensure that there's no long-term damage to the thyroid and sex hormones in particular. So women need to be especially mindful. Our thyroid hormone helps to regulate our metabolism. So eating a keto diet can actually inhibit the conversion of T4 to T3, which is the active thyroid hormone, leading to worsening hypothyroidism. So women are much more likely than men to be diagnosed with an autoimmune condition like hypothyroidism, and should definitely have their labs closely monitored by a physician. So biomarkers to track include a comprehensive metabolic panel, a complete cholesterol profile, thyroid hormones, so TSH, FT4, and FT3, and then of course sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone.
A lot of women are attracted to the keto diet when they're overweight, and they may not know that they are struggling with a thyroid disorder. Hypothyroidism is something that leads to unnecessary weight gain or stubborn weight that you can't get rid of. So That's why it's important to think of these things. Even if you're thinking right now, that's not me, I don't have any thyroid problems. Even if your conventional doctor, your everyday doctor checked your thyroid levels and said you're fine. It happens time and time again, and they're not doing these comprehensive testing that you should really look into, because the thyroid is really complicated. And the relationship between insulin and hormones is really complicated, as is everything that's related to hormones. Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, who also suffered from hypothyroidism, did a lot of work on this topic, and she cited studies in which male athletes on ketogenic diets did experience significantly increased testosterone levels, which is what they were looking for. And in women with PCOS, keto diets improved symptoms by decreasing testosterone. That was good for them too. But then a significant percentage of young women following long-term keto diets to help their epilepsy, they reported a loss of their menstrual cycle. And that's a sign that something pretty major is going on and we shouldn't ignore.
I mean, that happens to so many women, because if you think about it, you don't need your system to survive. So, but like you said, it's such a good sign to figure out, okay, something is wrong with my body. There's so much debate about whether we should eat a low carb diet or if we should eat a high carb diet. I think the debate exists because no single answer is correct for all people. You can go online and research healthy diets and see wildly conflicting opinions regarding a carb intake.
Yeah, some people do better with a higher carb intake, and some people do much better on a restricted carb intake. There is a spectrum from high to low carb intake, and we all need to determine where we fit on this spectrum. It'll have a huge impact on our health for the rest of our lives if we just find this sweet spot,
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I feel so much better on a low carb diet is that I end up eating fat. Fat is so crucial to health, and most of us really don't get enough of it. One of the pros of the keto diet is increased fat, especially if it's healthy fat like avocado, nuts, or wild fatty fish. And it is such a good way to detox from sugar, due to the fact that, this diet only allows 50 grams of carbs total. Most people are really going to have to cut out their intake of really sugary foods, which is certainly a plus and something I think most of us can benefit from.
Yeah, it's almost like everyone should try it at least once, because it's a really big wake-up call. I don't know which one of the positive effects had the biggest effect on me when I tried keto. I was obsessed with fat because I avoided it for so long, and it just felt so good to consume. But I also felt so much better without sugar, because there's an immediate difference in my appetite and cravings when I remove the sugar. And that wouldn't have happened with the fat alone if I didn't reduce my sugar intake. It was really because of that. And my mood changed when I was reducing the sugar intake. That's why I just watch my sugar at all times now. There's really no going back. It's just not for me anymore.
Oh, I always tell my clients, eat less sugar because you're sweet enough already. And they always kind of crap about that. But maybe one of my favorite parts is that ketosis helps the brain cells and their mitochondria access more energy. And more energy in your cells means more energy for you to get stuff done. I think that's the best. So a high-fat, low-carb lifestyle or ketogenic lifestyle, it helps with headaches, Parkinson's disease. It helps with sleep disorders and autism and multiple sclerosis, and even epilepsy and Alzheimer's disease. Again, ketosis causes your brain to generate more mitochondria, which has been shown to enhance mental clarity.
Right. That's another reason why so many of us are attracted to the keto diet, even if we're not trying to lose weight. We want those brain benefits. But listen to this. Dr. Sarah Ballantyne agrees that the keto diet has therapeutic promise in the wide range of neurodegenerative and neurological diseases, reducing seizures like you mentioned, improving memory, improving balance, improving cognition, and improving mood scores, like how keto diets can stabilize moods in people with bipolar disorder. This is awesome. But because glucose is considered to exacerbate these conditions that I just mentioned, it makes sense that ketones would be a better choice. It would be a better fuel source for these people. But there's new evidence, though, that keto diets don't provide the same benefits for a healthy brain. In a study of cognitive performance in young, healthy men that were following a short-term keto diet, these participants showed significantly reduced focused concentration, memory retrieval speed, and a speed of visual information processing. That's a big deal because it's these types of men, these young, healthy men that are looking for peak performance that are going to be attracted to a keto diet. And little do they know it's actually not for them. Healthy brains don't respond in the same way as brains that are suffering from any kind of disorder or dysfunction. And in a study of overweight women on a longer-term keto diet, participants scored markedly lower on their mental tests too.
Wow, I mean, it's kind of just like what you were talking about earlier. Short term, it may work for people, but in overweight women, this long-term diet's not going to work, and something's got to change.
Well, even for those men, though, the men were on a short-term keto diet and they had reduced concentration and memory retrieval. It's just saying that a healthy brain is really not going to function optimally on reduced carbohydrate in most cases, like we would assume, because we look at the improvements in all those other people, like anyone with neurological and neurodegenerative disorders are seeing improvements in memory and improvement in cognition, but we're not seeing the same thing in someone with a healthy brain. So that's a huge discovery that we're going to start seeing more studies on in the future.
That's so eye-opening. I mean, I've always suspected that, there were more concerns with being keto. You can end up deficient in important micronutrients like folate, calcium, and potassium, which is why most ketogenic devotees recommend taking multivitamin. Okay, and Marisa, listen to this. The director of neurology and chief of epilepsy and clinical neuropsychology at Children's Mercy Kansas City cautions a keto lifestyle can lead to kidney stones as well as weaker bones. So osteopenia, which is a precursor for osteoporosis. So when you're not eating enough carbs and you're taking in too many fats and proteins, you could take calcium away from your bones. And when you're on a keto, your urine pH levels become more acidic, which can actually deplete the body of calcium and increase the risk of kidney stones due to the added stress on the kidney.
I hope the word gets out about this, because to those people who have kidney stones or suffer from them, they can tell you this is no joke. It's really, really painful. And you don't want to do something that's a seemingly healthy diet and just make it worse. So let's spread the word. And I want to share a bit more research that I read from Sarah Ballantyne's articles. She said a recent study of 29 pediatric epilepsy patients that were following a keto diet for an average of 2.1 years showed a significant loss of bone mineral density, with 2 of the children that actually sustained fractures throughout the entire 2 years of the study. And these results confirmed that what an earlier study confirmed, that loss of bone mineral density was even higher, attributable to the fact that half of the children in the study started with lower than average bone mineral content. Only one study has actually been done on adults, and the same results were not observed. So, that being said, the effects of keto diet on bone health and bone density are more readily observed in pediatric patients, since children are actually growing. They have higher rates of bone turnover, so maybe that's why there's such a huge impact on them.
Wow. I mean, as you can see, there are so many things to consider before trying a new diet and just turning it into a lifestyle. I mean, I will say keto has so many benefits, like even reducing the risk of heart disease. Recent research shines light on how a low-carb diet can optimize cholesterol levels and just improve heart health. One recent study published in the British Journal of Nutrition investigated the impacts of ketogenic diets on key metrics of cardiovascular health, including HDL cholesterol. So the study showed that a keto diet is an effective method in raising HDL cholesterol when compared to traditional weight loss diets that emphasize reducing your fat intake. And just to let you guys know, HDL is going to be the good cholesterol that's been shown to maintain optimal heart health.
Yeah, it sounds like that could help a lot of people because, they're already getting advice that they need to optimize their cholesterol and nobody knows how. We've been so confused about cholesterol since they've changed the guidelines. So one thing we do know is that raising your HDL cholesterol and optimizing that HDL to triglyceride ratio would be ideal. So this is really good stuff, Jess.
Yeah, but one downside is that the keto diet, it can be so difficult to follow. I mean, it's really difficult for even a nutrition expert like me to live my life and follow a plan that's 70 to 80% fat, 10% carb, and just 15% protein. I mean, every single meal has to be kind of planned and calculated, and that's no fun. And I think for most people, and I know for clients, that would be the hardest part. Many people end up eating fats that aren't so healthy. I think while the upside of the plan is the fact that you get to increase your fat intake, the downside is that many people actually end up eating really low quality animal fats. So many people aren't purchasing organic, grass-fed animal products, so quality of food can totally be an issue. I think the bottom line, if you are using or eating a lot of animal-based foods for your fat and protein, you need to make sure that you're purchasing organic and just well-sourced whenever possible.
I could not agree more. If you're looking for the healthiest diet, that will help you get adequate nutrients but avoid packing on the pounds, then you're going to have to figure out what is the right carb balance for you. Let's look at the recommendations from some of the experts that we quoted today. Paul Jaminet, the author of The Perfect Health Diet, which is basically a paleo type diet that also includes what he calls safe starches, like modest amounts of white rice and potatoes. But Paul says the average person should be eating 1 pound of sweet veggies and fruits. This includes carrots and beets and all sorts of fruits. So 1 pound a day, along with 1 pound of starchy carbohydrates like squashes, sweet potatoes, all sorts of potatoes, and organic white rice when you're exercising or you're not trying to be in ketosis. And that helps to add enjoyment in the diet. I think he's right there. And Dr. Sarah Ballantyne emphasizes that maintaining insulin sensitivity is essential for health. And I think all of the experts would agree there. And let me clarify that insulin sensitivity is the opposite of what we were talking about, insulin resistance. So insulin sensitivity is a good thing. It means your cells are readily hearing, they're sensitive to the calls of insulin and they're working properly. But Sarah explains that avoiding or drastically reducing carb intake is not necessary. Keeping blood sugar levels within a healthy, happy medium range is actually easy and totally natural if we just limit ourselves to whole food sources of carbohydrates, like the starchy root vegetables and fruits we've been talking about, and eat them as a part of a meal that includes healthy animal proteins and non-starchy vegetables like leafy greens. And then for people with insulin resistance or diabetes already, measuring their carb portions and keeping track of their glucose levels after their meals is still advisable, even when they're eating this moderate amount of carbohydrate intake, because you got to see how your body's responding.
Yes, I mean, that would be my recommendation too. Now, Marisa, I love this quote you found from gastroenterologist Dr. Michael Ruscio.
Yeah, Dr. Michael Ruscio.
Thank you. Okay, so he said that eating to control your blood sugar is more important than eating to feed your gut bugs. So explain to the listeners what he means here.
Well, so many of us hear advice that we need so much fiber in our diet. We need prebiotics and carbs to feed our good gut bacteria. That's the biggest trend now. It's we need prebiotic fiber. We need plenty of fiber. But Dr. Ruscio is pointing out that this eating strategy is not going to give us the results we want if our blood sugar is chronically high or we're not striking the right carb balance for us as individuals, especially if there's gut dysbiosis, if there's something negative going on in our gut or an imbalance in the gut bacteria, feeding those bacteria is probably going to make it worse. He says you must eat to control and balance your blood sugar. Eating to balance blood sugar will create a healthy environment for gut bacteria and thus improve your microbiota. A spectrum exists for carbohydrate and prebiotic intake. Some people will do better on less and some people will do better on more. We each have to determine where we fit on that spectrum.
So the takeaway, I think a keto diet has really risen to fame with some valid merits, and yet there are some common misconceptions about how to properly execute it. Okay, so butter, coffee, and bacon for breakfast, or scrambled eggs, sauteed greens, tomatoes, and avocado slices. They're both keto. However, the latter is far superior in nutrients. It's anti-inflammatory. It's got more fiber, and I'm sure prebiotic fiber, and just it's so much more satisfying. If you eat buttery coffee, by all means go for it. I do occasionally. But you just have to bear in mind that the 200 plus calories you get from all the butter, it's not going to magically disappear post-ingestion. So if weight loss is your goal, which a lot of people do adhere to the keto diet for weight loss, those calories can make a huge difference in progress results. And a big question I get all the time is, do I have to adhere to a full-blown keto diet to see results, which is less than 50 grams of carbs per day? And my answer is absolutely not. In fact, according to Primal Blueprint carbohydrate curve, about 50 to 100 grams of carbs per day, that's going to be the sweet spot for effortless weight loss. So minimizing insulin production, and it's just going to ramp up fat metabolism. So by meeting average daily protein requirements, which is like 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of lean body weight formula, and eating really nutritious veggies, fruits, easy to stay in 50 to 100 grams of carbohydrates per day, even with generous servings, and just staying satisfied with delicious high-fat foods like meat, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, you can lose 1 to 2 pounds of body weight a week and then keep it off forever by eating in the maintenance phase. And the maintenance phase is going to be 100 to 150 grams of carbs per day. So this range is based on body weight and activity level. So when combined with primal exercises, it's just going to allow for optimal fat burning and then muscle development. So I really like this just because, you don't have to adhere to this extremely low carb keto diet. Being 50 to 100 grams per day, it's actually doable and pretty realistic if you do want weight loss. And then 100 to 150 grams per day, oh my goodness, like that makes me feel satisfied. That allows me to have fun in my diet, like incorporating foods that I love, like potatoes and beets and carrots.
Yeah, I always advise my clients now to aim first at that maintenance range. I love that range, 100 to 150 grams of carbs, because it's not too drastic of a change for people to where it's a huge challenge psychologically and physically, or for their family and their household, their lifestyle. And it's a huge wake-up call. If you're eating breads and processed foods all the time, or you're used to having dessert every day, this is already a step that's going to help you make these changes in a way that's actually doable. That's when we really start to mimic the diet the human body was designed to have. And it's easy to fall back on that when you're not in this 50 to 100 gram carb range, or you're not actually going into the keto zone. I think it's good for you to know what it's like to be between 100 and 150 grams of carbs a day, because your body can likely handle that. You're going to have safe insulin production, and you're going to be tampering down that inflammation and eating a healthier diet.
Yeah, so ultimately, when it comes to deciding if a diet is right for you, I think here's my best advice. So of all the best diets, they involve eating whole foods as opposed to packaged and processed. And of course, filling 3/4 of your plate with veggies, about 1/4 of your plate with a quality source of protein, and of course, a serving of healthy fat. So really, as long as you stick to these ratios, you will see results, and just learn more about what makes you feel the best.
Yeah, I hope the listeners got from this episode that we aren't necessarily in one camp or the other. We just want everyone to know that this is definitely a fad, and we don't necessarily feel confident saying that it's a good solution for all people looking to lose weight or optimize brain function. We don't feel comfortable saying this is good for long term. And I personally would say anything over 3 months is probably going to be a little risky. And there's so much more that goes into it, so much more nuances that you have to consider. And Jessica and I love helping people with that. You can reach out to us at both of our websites. Mine is marisamoon.com. That's like Marissa with one S. And Jessica, where can they find you?
So you can find me at jessicadogert.com. And we would really love for you to reach out to us. If any of our listeners have ever tried the keto diet, if they love it, if they hate it, we want to know. So reach out to us because we love hearing from all of our listeners. And thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, please share this with someone that's into the keto diet or considering it, and leave us a review on iTunes. You can also find us on Facebook. We're the Foundation of Wellness Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Bye.